All right. Good morning, Jenni. Oh, Jenni's not here this morning. She's tied up. She'll be here shortly. Today on the show, we've got Wendi and Charity Linch. Wendi and I and Charity, we're going to talk about the Oklahoma State Election Board meeting that was on Wednesday and what happened there. And then we're going to talk with Charity about her brigades and everything she does too. So we're going to go ahead and bring in everybody here, Wendi and Charity. Good morning, ladies.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Good morning, Michael. Good to see you again. Good morning, Charity.
Hello, Wendi.
Hi.
I'm going to turn this music off real quick. Okay. All right. Well, we have some interesting things that came out of the meeting on Wednesday. Wendi, you were there. I was there. It was pretty interesting. Yes. I want to say, first of all, at that meeting, I mean, was it not funny to you that they just immediately went into executive session? There was no open. I mean, they came in, they gave their introduction. I mean, and literally there was no discussion about anything. And then maybe we need to go into executive session. I mean, it was just an immediate, just in the meeting, slam on the table. Let's go to executive session. That's where this is going to be handled. Didn't you think that was a little odd?
Well, yes, I read the agenda that was put out late Monday night for the meeting, and it said they would have a discussion about whether or not they would go into executive session. What struck me when I walked in was that it was practically standing room only in that room. It was packed full of people. I'm not sure if they're used to anyone coming in to observe their meetings, but we had several, people there. I believe they told me there were 30 chairs that would fit in that room. And then when I got there, I almost had to stand outside. Somebody let me have their chair. So there were multiple citizens there that were worried about this process, who I guess got the agenda and were there to see the process and see what would happen. But yes, I saw on the agenda where they would have discussion about executive session, but they did immediately go into executive session. Yeah. And they stayed in executive session until after 7:00 that evening. So everything that was happening behind closed doors, where none of us were privy to what was going on in that meeting. That was very concerning. Yes.
So that was so those were the statewide brigades that showed up, Wendi, that came from all over the state, because this is infuriating. But how many hours was that? You said they're there till after 7. Didn't that start at like 8 something in the morning? I mean,
9
in the morning. So
9
in the morning till 7 at night.
Yes. And the Capitol apparently closes at 7. So we were there after they officially locked the doors, I guess. So yes.
Yeah.
It was to say it was eye-opening. We couldn't understand, what was taking so long. They kept calling people in, recalling people in. We couldn't see what was going on. But yes, it was amazing to see people from the brigade show up. Yes.
But they were harassing you guys. That's a long time.
Well,
it's a punishment for you showing up to stay in.
Ultimately.
Well, yeah, we didn't have lunch, called in for us like the board did while they were in executive session. Apparently had lunch brought in for them. Representative Olson was allowed into that meeting, and he's the only one that I know of, because they wouldn't allow anyone else. Representative Olson is the head of the Ethics and Election Committee in the House, and he was asked to go in by citizens that were there. Right now the Capitol is in a special session for taxes. So we did have several legislators come down and look at the process that was going on at the state election board during this meeting as well. So everyone was expressing concerns about the process, how long it was taking, what might be going on in that meeting, what are they even talking about? because there wasn't any. It is my understanding that none of the people that were there to testify before this board, whatever it was that they were doing, was given notice on what would be talked about, what would be discussed. There was no way they could prepare. There were no attorneys allowed present. There was basically this special meeting called. No one was given information on what would happen. The board apparently knew what they were going to talk about because they knew it would take an executive session to do so.
Yeah.
And the assistant attorney general was there, which also concerns me because the state election board is under the oversight of the legislature. So why is the assistant attorney general there advising the board on legal matters? She was sitting in on the meeting. She was there for the entire executive session, and she was there for the end result. And it looked to me like there was a lot of legalese going on at the end there when they rendered their decision on matters that we were not given details about.
Yeah.
But we still don't know.
And Wendi, let's just recap real quick what this is all about. And Jenni wrote an article that's on the ROPE website that details the observations. I mean, that's basically kind of let's say you've got the election board, which is made up of 3 members, one from the Democratic side, the Secretary Doug Sanderson, and then you've got the Republican side. And in that capacity on the Republican side, you've got Cheryl Williams and you've got Jenni, who's the alternate, and likewise on the other side for the Democrats. So they have a whole set of rules and procedures to observe elections as they come in with absentee ballots and everything else. So that's their job, and their job is to observe and go by these rules and procedures. Well, that's what they did, and both Jenni and Cheryl both had issues with certain things that they thought were going against the rules that they said they were supposed to observe with. So they made simple observations. They didn't make any accusations. They didn't point any fingers. They just said, hey, here are these observations. They wrote them in an email. And I'm telling you, between Cheryl and Jenni, 2 of the most upstanding, honest, no one with an agenda there between either one of those. And both of those women, I have a massive amount of respect for. The backbone that each one of them have is unbelievable. And I'm gonna just bring up real quick. So from our website, you can literally just click the second page here, just so you can read it for yourself. On the second page, it's this 3rd article here that says vote. Anyway, but that will give you the entire detail, the entire background, the questions that Jenni and Cheryl both wrote in, and then the responses by that whole meeting, that knee-jerk response. And I'm just going to tell you from my point of view with kids. Wendi, you've got kids. I'm sure, Charity, you have kids. Like when something happens, like with my kids, and I just ask a question, say, hey, who was someone in the garage and, hit my car, dented my car or something? If they didn't do anything wrong, they just say, no, I didn't do anything. But the one who does something wrong, already has a complete story, is combative, the whole 9 yards. It's so easy. It's so easy to tell who actually did it. It's no different in this case. I mean, it's absolutely no different. If there's nothing going on down there, if there's nothing going on, then there should be no issue. The questions that Jenni and Cheryl had, and here's the article for anyone who wants to read it. But the questions that they had are just simple questions and observations. I mean, how hard is it to address those? You have to go into an executive meeting and do the things they did. And then, I'm not going to get into the whole, everything that I want to say now, but I can just tell you, I was standing outside that door. Wendy, you said you were in that room. I was standing outside. When they went into executive session, there was only one single person that would look me in the eyes, because I specifically was looking at every single one of those people directly in the eyes as they were walking out. Only one person would even put their head up and look me in the eyes as they walked out that door.
Well, I noticed just an impression I got from the room and from the board. There seemed to be a lot of nervousness, anxiety. I don't know if it's because they knew what they were going to talk about, or they were, getting ready to go into this session. But it was interesting. It was hard to tell if that was because they actually had people that were at the meeting. I don't think too many people attend state election board meetings. But there did seem to be a little bit of nervousness there. I couldn't get anybody's eye, trying to catch them in the room while they were sitting at the table discussing the executive session. I know it seemed like they were trying to do it step by step, like by the book, so to speak. Seemed to be a little worried about that. And I think with the attorney present, that's what concerns me, because the board had an attorney there, and it was the assistant attorney general. And that concerns me, why taxpayer money is being spent to advise a board whose purpose in this meeting was to interrogate individuals without attorneys, and then come out and vote to refer them to the same agency for investigation. That's extremely concerning to me.
Yeah.
Not to mention the Oklahoma County DA, and that's another story. Why are we referring citizens who don't get paid, or don't get paid that much, who are simply trying to observe and write their observations, and their observations were sent to the Secretary of the Election Board? Why are we persecuting citizens for doing their duty and doing their job? This is very concerning to me, and that's what worries me about the whole process here. I have questions with the process because I do not know what happened in session, and I don't know what was brought out. But I was observing the entire process and had very serious concerns about the way this whole thing was handled and the way it's been done, and especially on the outcome. Because we have the chairman of the board saying that this wasn't in retaliation for anything. Why would she feel necessary to say that? Sometimes Shakespeare, I think it's Shakespeare, thou doth protest too much. I mean, that was just my impression. Why did she feel the need to say that? Number one. But also number two, how is anyone supposed to think anything differently? Because you have citizens doing their job, simply writing their observations. Cheryl voted against the certification of the December 12th election for reasons that she says, and I have no doubt, no reason to not believe her, when she says she thought they may have done something illegal, so she did not want to certify at that time until those questions were cleared up. And so I don't understand why citizens, like I said, who were asked to do their duty, who are doing their duty and only trying to make sure our statutes are enforced at the county election board, why they're literally being persecuted at this point, being called up there, no attorneys, no heads up as to what the accusations are, if any, against them. None of that. And then they're called in and they're basically grilled for how long.
That's
Jenni was recalled.
Yeah.
So they had to stay up there the whole time.
Yeah.
But Cheryl was allowed to leave and come back. But it's very concerning. I heard from one of the other members that was there to also talk before the board. He wasn't given any notice of what the meeting was about either. So everyone was kind of mystified going in as to what this was all about. They may have had an idea given the situation on the board, I guess. But there was nothing in writing and nothing they could really prepare for. That doesn't seem right to me.
Yeah, and I think just for further clarification, this kind of surrounds that election, but I think they opened the absentee ballots a day earlier than normal on that.
Yes.
And then also that 3-member board, which is the Democrat, the Secretary, and the Republican, are all supposed to be in that observation, I think, together. Yet
yes,
the 2 are removed behind, in a public viewing room behind a closed, a CCTV.
mm-hmm.
And that's their only avenue, to actually do their observation and inspection there. And that, I think, that's just one of the questions that they raised is, hey, I think we're supposed to be there. It doesn't say we're supposed to be, in another room behind a TV.
I believe that does violate Title 26.
Yeah.
I believe they are supposed to be there in the room. People have to understand, and getting people to understand this very simple principle is a challenge of mine and something I've been doing, and that is rules are not laws. Administrative rules are not laws, and any administrative rules that violate the law need to be looked at and need to be removed. And if people choose not to follow those rules because they are in violation of the law, this is part of the problem between our administrative rules and Title 26. We have multiple contradictions, and that's just one of them regarding the video and the closed circuit issue there. And I noticed it back in April when I went down to observe an absentee ballot count in Oklahoma County Election Board. I have, my write-ups and my notes from that. My notes from December 15th and the certification kind of dovetail with some of what Jenni was saying. There are concerns about how Title 26 is applied at the county election board. So I do not understand, like I said, why we are persecuting at this point a couple of citizens doing their duty and writing up their observations. And we have accusations being made publicly in a meeting at 7:15, 7:20 at night with no information to go with those because it was all in executive session.
100%.
The minutes have to be compelled. It's my understanding. Those executive minutes cannot be made public. So we still don't know what the actual situation and testimony was. All we have is that the board is leveling accusations against citizens and openly, publicly referring them for investigation. I've heard recently, and I hate to go Harry Potter on you, but I've heard recently people talk about some Ministry of Truth analogy as to what's going on in the entire country today regarding the weaponization of government against officials. And this was reminiscent of that to me because we, the public, were sitting there waiting for answers all day on what's going on. And at the end, what we get, and I actually have videotape of it, is this very bizarre almost attitude while voting to refer these women for investigation to the Oklahoma County DA and the Office of the Attorney General, and the Assistant Attorney General is sitting right there basically guiding the chairman, the president of the election board, in her wording and what she's saying. That's very odd to me. That's very concerning. I know wanting to remain legal, but this was just a little over the top, I thought. But that's my personal impression.
Yeah. Well, and let's just summarize. You've got 2 conservative Christian Republican women who are there to observe and follow the written statutes of how the process is supposed to happen. They have some questions. And just to dovetail back, Wendi, you mentioned, us not being able to have access to the minutes of the meeting and this and that. Well, that was another issue that Jenni and Cheryl both brought up in that initial observation, was there were things being left out of the minutes that they feel like, were pretty important. They just made an observation. Hey, these things should be recorded so everything gets into the minutes. And that's another issue. But you've got 2 women who did their job, didn't back down, and they literally, and this is speculation on my part, but they're probably behind just being complete in like an inquisition in there when they got called into that executive meeting. I'm sure it was just, they were getting hammered. And then you come out, they're both fired from their job or removed from their job. And then now you're going to have the DA or someone from the AG's office do an investigation. You want to talk about intimidation. You want to talk about, like you brought up, the Ministry of Truth, 1984, all of that is 100, Jenni is Winston Smith, right now, 1984. And so is Cheryl, same thing. This is, complete intimidation, in my opinion, for any, you don't ask questions. You go along with the good old boy system. You don't ask questions, because if you do, we're not only going to fire you, we're going to investigate you. I mean, you want to talk about
well, I would have thought too, it makes no sense to me. I make all of my observations public. I don't send them to the election board, but I am not required to. I know that Jenni, I believe, was following the protocol by sending this initially to the secretary of the election board. But since it is a public job, she was appointed to that position as an alternate. She probably feels like I do, that the public has a right to know what's going on down there, or the observations that are made that people have concerns about regarding the process. But what struck me out of all of this is that I did see the secretary of the Oklahoma County Election Board was there, and he was talking, and he's never been anything but nice to me when I go in there. I've been in there a couple of times. I ask him questions, but I have questions about the process, but I didn't hear anything about any even reprimand or something, or, hey, we're going to talk to the Oklahoma County Secretary of the Election Board and talk to him about the processes, make sure things are being followed. There was no mention of that whatsoever during this process. And that kind of concerns me as well, because we have two women that are just trying to do their job and their duty. But we have issues with the process down there, but we don't hear anything about the person who's in charge of that process. So, and whether or not any of that's going to be looked into. So and that would have been addressed at that meeting. I believe they had him up there for a reason.
So the concerns were never even looked at or addressed. They were only punished for even asking a question. I'm just trying to break this down.
That's what it appears to be.
Yeah. From the outside, that's what it looks like.
What happened in the executive session?
Because they're not doing it publicly, so we're left to assume from what we can tell. Because they're I'm just trying to break it down for those just tuning in, because this is
thank you.
A travesty of justice, and everyone should be outraged.
Yeah,
I mean, the elections are how they're stealing everything and doing everything. So this is something that we should all be more than concerned about.
Well,
we should.
Well, go ahead, Wendi. Go ahead.
I was just going to say we should, and it is concerning. We can't get anywhere with officials asking for investigations like this. We do have two election board members finally in Oklahoma County that were observing things and raising questions, and now they've been fired. So by officials. So, and people should understand the way the election board works in Oklahoma. The secretary of our state election board is appointed by the Senate. He is the secretary of the Senate, and by default, according to the statutes, he is the secretary of the election board. Yeah. He in turn appoints all of the members of your county election board. So everyone that handles our elections officially is appointed.
Yeah, appointed.
Which 100%. I find almost an oxymoron. It's very ironic. The people who administer elections in Oklahoma are appointed officials and not elected by the people. Well, so they are not accountable to us directly.
Yeah. And what are Jenni and Cheryl and Mr. Glover for the Democratic side? Those are our representatives. Those are our interests being represented in that process, because they are of the people. They're not in there working for the state's side. They're supposed to be the ones that are observing. They're supposed to be the ones that are there. So you have just complete authoritarian system here where you've got these non-elected people just intimidating, the people that have been put up from our side to represent our interest in this process. I mean, it's just so
Yes.
mind-blowing to me that.
Well, we are told to, if you have an issue with the election at the county level, you're supposed to report it to the DA. And I see Amber Evans is watching, and she pointed out, why was Jenni sent to the DA with her questions with the process? And that is a very good question. We were trying to get legislation passed, which would allow the Attorney General's office to immediately look into election anomalies and election problems and issues, because it seems like in our statutes, the AG had been completely left out of the process, and local DAs are supposed to look into this. We were trying to get that changed so that the AG's office could look into Oklahoma elections directly without having to go through the DA. I believe that bill got stuck in committee. I'm not sure where right now the AG is in the process, but these ladies are being referred to the Attorney General's office, and that's with the Assistant Attorney General sitting right there, advising the board to do so. They had to vote in order to give Secretary Ziriak the authority to do that. That to me, I was watching. Sorry, Jenni's correcting me. She says the assistant DA, not the AG. Someone else had told me that was the assistant attorney general. So I stand corrected. That is the assistant DA. So we have an assistant DA that is advising the board to refer to their office, which would be the Oklahoma County DA's office then, refer people for investigation to their office. She's sitting right there advising the board to do so. That is extremely concerning to me. So with that said, they also were referred to the Attorney General's office. That vote was taken to refer them to the AG's office as well. So we have a situation where we are watching in real time what appears to me to be serious questions of constitutional process and due process with elected or appointed officials, referring citizens just trying to do their job for investigation, and the people who sit in those offices directing the referring. That is extremely concerning. And also, I just wanted to say I was watching the chat that was posted up there, and I want to address what Wayne Hill said really quick. He is calling for Cindy Byrd to audit the state election board. And I myself have been calling for that for several months now publicly. We need a full, complete audit of the state election board. We need to know where the Help America Vote Act money is going. We need to know where all of the money's going. We need to know what's going on in that office. There are too many citizens who are calling and not getting answers and getting referred back to their county election board for simple questions that you would think the state election board would be able to answer. I have internal emails that are concerning to me where they are discussing private citizens back and forth in derogatory terms. People are being told, county election board officials are being told to refer citizens, and people coming into the state talking about election integrity, potentially to the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security. We have very serious concerns on what's going on at the state election board right now, and we've had those concerns for quite a while. And to see this play out publicly with what happened to Jenni and Cheryl just begs the question of what is going on at the state election board.
Well, and let's just call it out like it is, Wendi. I mean, this is an intimidation tactic from the good old boys club that you don't question the system. You don't question how we do things. You don't bring it up, because if you do, then now we're going to punish you. Okay, we're not just going to fire you. We're going to punish you. We're going to come after you. We're going to make an example out of you so that no one else in the future is going to want to take this position and ask a question or make an observation. That's where, I think they messed up here. Okay.
I think it's very confusing to people to have statutes and to have rules, but then when somebody tries to bring up infractions of those or potential infractions, this is what they get. So, you are correct. Nobody's going to want to do that job if they can't actually follow the rules that are laid out for that job. You're kind of wondering what you're there for, to be honest with you.
We'll move on with charities, but I'll just want to say one more thing. I think they messed up here because you've got two people in Jenni White and Cheryl Williams who have the biggest backbones of any two women I know. They're not going to back down. I mean, you literally just set the fire to yourselves. I mean, honestly, because you the integrity of these two women. I mean, this is, I mean, I'm glad it happened. Honestly.
I was mystified because as long as I do know Cheryl Williams, we attend church together, and I know her peripherally. I've talked to her a couple of times. She's a stickler for procedure and rules, and I believe this was why she was appointed to the election board by Ken Warner, so the Oklahoma County chairman. So you've got people there who are known in the public and known in the community for their powers of observation, for their integrity, for their stick-to-itiveness, and they do what everyone knows they're going to do, which is make observations and ask questions and refer things and say, what's going on here? We need to fix this. And yes, this is what they get in turn. And it's disturbing. And I was outraged sitting there. I can't really, I would love, like you, Michael, to sit there and say, several things right now, but in the interest of remaining neutral in the situation, it's just mystifying to me what's going on. And it's astonishing to me that they did this in public. It is just astonishing to me.
Well, Jenni is here. We're going to go ahead and bring her on. We'll go forward and talk to Charity about the brigades and what we can do to make this even better.
Mm-hmm. Well, with Jenni, you guys, this election, everything we're doing comes back to the elections. If we allow them to steal these elections and continue to bully people and not have integrity, nothing else we do matters, because this is where the buck stops. So we can talk about this as long as you want, because
that's right.
This is the most important.
Let's move on for now, and let's talk about, because the thing that I want to talk to, the reason why I thought it was so important to bring Charity on this morning, and I'm sorry I'm late, stuff I had to get done this morning, but a long time. So I guess I started in 2008, and Charity, you and I were talking about this the other day about the Tea Party. I mean, way back. And one of the thoughts that I know you and I both had, and all of us have had, is you can't find people to go to public meetings. And they don't want to look, they don't think to look for public meetings. They don't attend the public meetings. So therefore they don't know what's going on in their city council or on their
school board.
Thank you.
County commission.
Their school board. Yeah. So you did something that I think is absolutely, I mean, really, honestly, it's brilliant, and we should all follow your pattern. So Charity, I'm going to kind of turn it over to you since I've taken it away from Michael. I'm sorry.
Sure.
I'm sorry, Michael. But Charity, I'm going to turn it over to you, because I want you to talk about what you've done here, because I think everybody needs to hear what you have to say.
Okay. So brigades. So with the brigades, what we've done is this started in Craig County in Oklahoma. I realized we needed to be at every county, every official meeting, not even county, but I can't do it all. And we need to have a divide and conquer strategy. So we have a school board brigade that goes to every school board meeting they don't miss. We have a county commissioner brigade. We have a city council brigade. They have formed brigades on 5G, whatever the freedom issues that you're facing in your area, and every single government meeting we have a presence at. So these people show up, they take notes, and then they report back to the Freedom Group. Now, we partner with different freedom groups because I believe that we have to quit, number one, quit worrying about who's taking credit. Number two, we have to come together and just and do what it takes. So you come back to the Freedom Group, whatever group that is, and you say, okay, this is what's happening. So you can strategize how to fight back, and you know what's happening. We have found money that's been stolen. We have identified people that need to be replaced. There is a lot that was going under the rug that we're finding because there is always someone there. My belief is that we're at war. We have been infiltrated, and the brigades put you in place. In Craig County, we grew exponentially when we started doing this because most people understand that we're under attack. They just don't understand what to do to fight back. So if this is a plan that gives everyone a place, so you can be a part of this brigade, what matters most to you? God probably called you to that. So you go, if it's the kids, go to the school board meetings, show up. Now, we are at war. So if you agree to go, you cannot leave your post unmanned. If your kid has a game, there are 12 other games. If you're sick, you have somebody go in your place. If you really want to go to the game, make sure somebody is manning your post, because when you start to show up, the first thing they do is say, who are you? What are you doing here? And they start questioning because they're used to us being asleep.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we show up, and then once you are going on a regular basis, if you stop going, they pass something as soon as you're not there. It happens every time. You have to be diligent in going to every meeting, but then you know what's happening. We have seen stops in smart city plans. We have come against some of the wind farms coming in. We have come against the SEL agenda. We've come against CRT. We've come against books in the schools. We've uncovered a lot of money stolen. Just a lot of different things by just showing up and having the system. And then what's beautiful is a leader from each brigade talks on a statewide level. So now we have this statewide people that are talking, and that is how so many people showed up at that meeting yesterday. Is Wendi, who we partner with Restore Liberty and for the Core, and Wendi, along with a couple of others, help with the election integrity part of it. And it's just about communication sharing. Nobody is trying to get credit. There's nobody at the top to buy. If you want to buy someone off, you'd have to buy off everybody going to a meeting, and that's hundreds of people. And so across the state, they got on and said, we need everybody to be at the election board, told everyone what was going on. And you guys saw the numbers that showed up. It's a matter of just being able to communicate and collaborate, first on a community level and then a statewide level. And now we have 19 states participating as well. And so we have a state leader that helps with across the nation, and we have a state level as well. And so, a national level as well. So it's a bottom-up structure to show up, get involved, and take the republic back from the bottom up. Like I said, there's no one at the top. It's very simple, but it's effective.
So here's my question to you, because I think that this is such a great thing. And I've even thought about it, before myself. We talked about it at OKC 912. That was one of the things that we were going to do. And when we started OKC 912 a million years ago, and we were going to get people to go to these meetings because we saw exactly what you're saying. Mm-hmm. Exactly what you're saying. And before I go on, I'm going to double down. So when I got elected as mayor out here in Luther, before that, we had like 15 people coming to the meetings.
Yeah. So
what happens when I get elected?
Right. They stop coming because they think you've got it covered, right?
Oh my.
Right. Yeah.
And we've got to make people understand I could do something wrong. Any of us that get in there, we're not infallible people. That's why you have accountability. That's why I make myself open to accountability, because if and when I do something wrong, I need somebody to say, well, that wasn't the right way to go. Right. So you've got to stay on people, even if you get them elected, because that seems to have been the problem that we got into in the first place. Well, we'll get these really good people elected.
And we go back to sleep. That's right. Well, I have so we have training videos with people across the country that really help because we've partnered with America's Frontline Doctors with several different ones. We have like Dr. Simone Gold talking about how to get credibility when you walk in the room and you're trying to talk to a city council. But Tanya Paris is the one I want to bring up for this. So she is part of Moms for Liberty in Florida, and they flipped the Sarasota Medical Board. And she's talking about how when you're looking for candidates, what to look for, how to do it. And Jenni, that's one of the things that she mentions. You can't be friends with the candidates. If you are friends with them, you have to set that aside, because even if you help them get elected, you are now watching them. There is no standing down, guys. We're at war and we are far from over. And the brigades really, we help keep each other engaged and motivated, but there is no, I don't think we get to lay down in this lifetime because we are under attack from a Marxist regime trying to take over. And they're doing it through the elections. And then once they get in place, all the different things that they're doing, they're coming at us from so many different directions. We have got to divide and conquer and have people manning different stations and different posts.
So I want to stick on that topic because that's what you and I talked about the other day, Charity, is our every day is like a dumpster fire.
Yes.
I mean, it's like you get on and you notice something and you're like, oh my gosh, this is happening there. Oh my gosh, did you see what they did here? Oh my gosh, did you? It's so easy for people to get overwhelmed. And what I love about what you're doing, Charity, is that it gives people zero excuse,
right,
not to be involved. You can't say, well, I don't have time. You don't have time to go to one meeting a month.
Right.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and Jenni, I've said this multiple times. No one is coming to save us. There's no one single person, whether it's your local school board member or your mayor or the governor or President Trump. No one's coming to save us. We have to take it upon ourselves to get involved, to stay involved. You can't just elect, your Jenni White to a board and then all of a sudden you don't show up anymore or whoever. Right. So 100%, Charity, we have got to install these brigades and have some accountability because no one is coming to save us. We have to save this place ourselves.
That's
I would just like to say, oh, sorry, Charity.
No, the left wants us, they're coming at us, right? And I believe it's a globalist agenda. They're trying to get us going spread too thin and going everywhere. We have to stop, strategize, and man our posts. And that's what this does. freedombrigades.com is where you can sign up to for this. If you're close, I will come to you and I will help get it started. We do have several people.
freedombrigades.com. I'm putting it in the chat.
Yes.
Okay.
And we have people across the country that are helping get this started and will help people get going. We have training for people. It's imperative. We don't have a choice. We're a little bit late coming to the table. They are very well organized on the left. It is time that we quit just doing whatever they tell us to do and think and strategize. Go ahead, Wendi.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Charity, people don't even have to guess about a globalist agenda anymore. I think the World Economic Forum has their plans out there anywhere for anyone to look at. I was a little shocked myself when I saw that. And so you don't even have to guess anymore. Just go to the World Economic Forum and listen to them, and they will tell you what they're doing, and then look in your community, and you will see what's going on. And people across the state of Oklahoma have done that. They're already working, but they need help. We need help. The elections are the key, and everybody needs to understand that. Because if they control your elections, they control your local officials. And this is why a lot of this agenda, I believe, is coming through. Because otherwise, why would they care about the elections? Well, the elections control everything. If you control elected, you can control the agenda. So this has been going on, it looks like a long time. So with the elections, we're not sure how far back it goes in Oklahoma, but we do know the anomalies are there and they're not being looked into. And it begs the question as to why. And so with what just happened.
Well, let me go back, if you don't mind, Wendi. Let me back up just a little bit, because one of the things too that we have to reiterate over and over and over again is there are so many people who have just quit voting. And before the people who just quit voting, I mean, after the 2020 election, it's all over the news. People felt like they got disenfranchised. I'm not going to vote again. My vote doesn't matter. What we have to do is be that voice that says, we are the people. You have a vote. Should you choose not to use that vote, shut up. Shut up. Because how are we going to get anywhere if we're staying home and we're going to whine and cry about stuff,
Right.
but stay home? I can't abide that. We're not whiners. None of us here are whiners. None of the good people of Oklahoma should be whiners.
That's right. And that is what has always impressed me about Oklahoma is the people here. And I've only lived here like 17 years now. But Jenni, you are absolutely correct. Actually getting people disinterested in elections is part of the strategy. Because if you get people disinterested in the elections, they don't work the polls. They don't become precinct officers. They don't go out and vote. They don't check the procedure. And while they have everybody at each other's throats over this party issue, Democrat versus Republican, meanwhile, nobody's looking at the man behind the curtain, which is the election processes themselves and what may be going on there. And when I present on election integrity around the state, I remind people, you have to get involved, engaged, and to vote, because part of the strategy is for you to sit home, to point at your neighbor and blame them for being silly enough to have voted for such and such candidate. So that way you don't look at the process, you're not involved. And meanwhile, we end up in the situation we're in right now. So,
or you do this, because you guys, I know, have heard this. I've talked to neighbors before who have told me this. Well, I vote in the presidential election. Well, that's kind of like going to church on Easter.
That's it.
That's true.
Okay. I mean, there are way more things that you can learn at church on the days that aren't Easter. And if you only go and vote on people don't understand that. Just like Charity, I think that's why I keep going back to you on this, because I don't think people understand the power of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because if we're going to say the grassroots is powerful, the people are powerful, but we don't want to start at the bottom and work up. We don't want to vote for our city council member. We don't want to vote for our school board. Well, who do you think is installing the creepy policies in public schools?
Well, what did COVID show us? Who has more say over you, the president or your sheriff and your mayor?
Correct.
Your local office matters more. And I got to tell you, as a whole, I want to save the whole republic. I don't know that we can save all of it, but I do think we can save regions and territories, which means the presidential is important, but probably not the most important.
Right. And I concur. The local elections, and everybody found out when they were masking your kids in school. And then the legislature passes legislation that prevents them from masking kids in school, but there's no teeth to it.
Right.
So we have a major school system directly violating state law, and there's no teeth in that law where you can, go after them for that. So the question becomes then, as Charity says, who has more control over your daily life, the president or say your local school board, who are making these, I would say, rash decisions based on questionable science. I'm a scientist. I questioned that science from the beginning, but the odds of people now getting involved, I hope, are going up greatly. We see more involvement, but we need more. And we need people to go join the brigades. We need people to go to freedombrigades.com, sign up and join your county brigade. And
I'd like to point out, in April 2020, they tried to put a curfew in our town because remember, COVID was more dangerous after 7 o'clock.
Oh, that's
right. Yeah. Yeah.
So after dark, it got really scary.
Right. So the attorney, we had a local attorney that went to the city council meeting. Now, we could only attend by Zoom, but he showed up and he said, don't do this. And they did it anyway. And so we sued them. Within 3 days, 72 hours, they had called an emergency meeting and turned the whole thing around because they knew they did not have a legal leg to stand on. We, the people, have power. We just don't realize what the power that we have.
Or we're going to be too lazy to use it. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's the other thing that really hacks me off. We have the power, but you're just going to be too lazy.
That's right. This is a constitutional republic. The power lies with us, but we have to wake up and get involved. Right now, the cost of freedom is your time. If you don't give your time, it's going to cost a lot more than that. And you have to. And with this brigades plan, really, it is 2 meetings a month because we're asking you to go to the one you say you'll go to and then to come back and report to your freedom group. That's maybe 2 hours of your life, like a month. This is for the cost of freedom. If people would understand where we're at on the Marxist timeline, they would get involved. We don't have the luxury of not getting involved. We have to.
Well, and let me say this, because I know where we are on the Marxist timeline, and it has made me so depressed sometimes that you get up in the morning and you're like, oh, what is the point? I mean, can't I just take the black pill and just do what I want to do? What's the point? But any of us who are Christian, and all of us on this program are Christians, and I'm speaking to you, Christians. Look me in the eye. I'm speaking to you. If you think you get to sit down on the job and you're not going to have to explain that to somebody later, I would advise you against that thought process.
That's accurate.
So it absolutely is your job. We are the hands and feet of our Lord while we're here. And that means that we do his jobs. And that means that no matter what that job is, I don't care if it's stinky or not. And I have my kid's soccer game. You go and do what you need to do, because that's what you were put here to do. We were given a responsibility, and you absolutely are required to meet that responsibility. And if you don't do it for me, I think there's somebody that you might have to answer to later for that.
Yeah. What you said, Jenni.
Yeah, and you may be going to that soccer game today, but tomorrow, will you be free to do so? And that's what everybody needs to think about as well. Look at your kids.
Good point.
They're going to soccer. Your grandkids going to soccer, going to baseball. My kid, baseball season starts soon, and I think about that all the time. I missed a lot of his games last spring because I was busy with election integrity and running around the state. And I sacrificed that season. He was used to me being there every single game since he was 4 years old. And I gave that up last spring to travel around and talk about elections with people across the state. Why? Because it is that important. It needs to be done. So people need to get involved. And we keep telling them, local action, get involved locally. Call your legislator, call your legislator, call your legislator, call your
city council member too, your school board member too.
Yes, school board, city council, county commissioner. Make sure these people know who you are when you call them. So don't worry about bothering them too much. I think they've been too lonely, quite frankly, without people holding them accountable or talking to them about what they should do.
So Amber just said something that I want you to address, Charity. The county election boards, I put it up just a second ago. The county election boards and the state election boards are not advertising elections very well either. Most don't know citizens have the opportunity to vote in their county multiple times a year. These are part of the problem with why we have low voter turnout outside of presidential election. She gets props for that comment, because I do know that when I was mayor, we also we were going to put to a vote an increase in our sales tax, so 1 penny. But see, that comes just like school bond elections, not school board elections, but just like school bond elections. City councils have elections for raising your taxes, for example. And if you don't pay attention to when those are, you don't go vote because you didn't even know about them. Charity, how can we find out when our elections are in our city?
So I personally have gone to Ballotpedia because it tells you when you have every election in your area. You put in your zip code. Now I've done this for it because I'm the chairman of the Republican Party in this county. And so I do that because every time there's an election, no matter how small it is, my people get a text saying, vote today. So to combat this problem, I would ask that the county leadership and the brigade leadership, sometimes that's one and the same, sometimes it's not. But as leaders, we need to make sure we have that schedule. And then, however, we're communicating with our people, let's remind people, let's get the vote out. Precinct leaders need to be talking to people because it is important and it is easy to miss. There are a few. So, like I said, I put it down in the beginning of the year. And then I make sure that everyone knows about the elections that I have influence over. And I don't know another, I think that would probably be the most effective. Personally, you can do it. But if you're a leader and you can let other people know about it, we need to get the momentum going, kind of like building any kind of a routine or a new habit. We have to help people get into that.
So here's what you just showed us. So I want to point to what's on the screen right now, which is if you put in your email address that's right here, they'll actually send you emails, I think, based on your zip code.
Mhm.
But don't forget to check here because it is true. And I will say this, I mean, and I'm going to stick up for city councils just a little bit on this issue.
Mhm.
It's expensive and hard to send out cards saying, here's your election, here's this election, here's this election. It's hard to do that. So unfortunately, it does fall on the citizen of the city and the school district to go to the school district's website, find out when those meetings are, go to the city council's website, find out when those meetings are, because they all have to be posted. And Charity, let's make sure everybody knows this. There is a law that says that city council meetings and school board meetings, any public meeting that's held on a regular basis, the dates have to be turned into the Oklahoma Secretary of State, and the Oklahoma Secretary of State keeps those notices, and they also have to be posted on their website. So there's no excuse that you go, well, I didn't know there was a meeting then. Yeah, you did. Just go and look it up and go to the meeting.
Yeah.
Very good.
Actually, too, I think on the elections, the state election board website has elections listed there, and your county election board website should have the elections listed there as well. The municipalities, you would think that the city websites would also have it. So there are multiple places where people can get the information on the elections. And I do know that legislation has been tried to be passed to make sure that more of our elections fall within the general election system.
Yes.
So say your school board elections, you could vote for them at the same time you're voting for president or your congressperson. Why we are having all of these offbeat, off topic, people aren't used to, I say off topic, but off calendar elections is a little strange. Why are we voting for mayor in April in Edmond last year? Why are we voting for bonds in February? Why are it's a little crazy with the schedule. So we are, there is legislation to try to move more elections to November when people can vote for everything at once or most things at once as much as humanly possible.
And let me follow up on what
participation.
And let me follow up on what you said. People don't understand that elections are expensive. So when we had to do the sales tax election, I believe, and don't quote me on exactly, I'm just giving you a ballpark, I think it was about $3,500 that the town had to send to the Oklahoma County Election Board in order to get that election set up so that everything could be processed. So when people say and make excuses about why we can't have kind of one or even two, let's say, election days where we go vote on anything just once or twice a year, the argument should be, well, why are we spending money on all of these little bitty tiny elections all over the board too, we're actually wasting taxpayer funds.
Yeah.
Right. So
Well, then let's call it out like it is, Jenni. The Democrats do. We complain, we whine. The Republicans just whine and complain, and the Democrats do. It's time for us, and like with Bridget's brigade system, Charity's brigade system.
Bridget's
brigade.
It kind of works.
We've got to take some personal responsibility. We can't just depend on the government just like they want. They want us to just try to live our lives and be frantic and have so much stuff going on that we can't pay attention. The government's going to grow. They're going to continue to grow. They're going to continue to take power. They're going to continue to be authoritarians, just like they did against you. And that's how it is. And unless we do something, I can't thank Charity enough for doing that. And how hard is it to have that kind of idea? It's not that hard. You just do it. You don't mess around. You just say, hey, we're going to make a commitment, just like you said, Charity. Just make a commitment a couple times a month to, here's an hour here, here's an hour there. But if we don't do something, then the government is sure going to do it. They're going to do it. But, unless we stop them, we're going to continue down this road of just tyranny and literal Marxism. It's literal. It's right at the edge of that.
I'd like to put something out to people, and Charity, you can speak to this as well. What happened to the constitutional principle of, we are delegating this very narrow authority to you, we the people, writing the Constitution. Okay, so we're going to delegate this very narrow power to you in the legislature, or you in the executive branch, or you in the judicial branch. And then all of the rest of the power, we the people are retaining for ourselves.
Yeah.
So this whole issue of implied powers, where does that come from? Because to me, in my reading of the Constitution, it says, if it doesn't address the matter that you're considering, the authority to determine that rests with the people. You can't just take that. So this whole issue of the government taking more and more power from the people really have to think about that, because the Constitution itself says, wait a minute, those powers are reserved to the people. So what on earth is going on there where we are allowing the government to take the authority? Michael, as you say, this whole business of implied authority, well, it's not addressed in the Constitution, therefore we can do X, Y, or Z. Well, actually, no, you can't. So you have to ask the people for permission to do that. And in order to do that, you may have to amend the Constitution. But I don't know, Charity. I'm a small government person.
This goes back to what Ben Franklin said. It's a constitutional republic if you can
keep it.
That's right.
That's up to us.
That's Restore Liberty's motto, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. If we stay asleep, that's their own fault. And they purposely, I do believe it's purposeful to keep us busy, and, bread and circuses, right? That was the Roman bread and circuses. Mm-hmm. We see a lot of it. We have to wake up and realize what's most important.
Well, and I think it's important also, we need to always address this, and Jenni and I talk about this all the time. This goes all the way back to preschool, kindergarten, primary school, secondary school. If we put an emphasis here on our state, every single year we're teaching the Oklahoma Constitution, the Constitution of the United States, our rights, our liberty, our freedom. If that is a mainstay of the education that you get when you come in Oklahoma, even though we're only 50% literate or even less, if that's a mainstay, then these kids are going to grow up and know that they have these inherent rights. Yeah. And it all goes back to education. The education system's been usurped, 50 years ago or longer, but it's a plan. Like you said, Charity, it's a plan. It's on purpose. But I think the masses are so uneducated that they are just subservient. They just do whatever the government says because they don't know any different, because they were never taught that that we have all these rights, that the government's not supposed to be our big brother making every decision for. I don't need the government to make me responsible. I'm a responsible person without the government saying I have to go this speed or buy this or pay this
Right.
or do this. I'm a responsible person. Most people are.
But see, you get back to what you and I have talked about over and over again. When the government takes something over, and I'm going to actually use a very specific example, even though it doesn't have anything to do with education. When the government took over our retirement, what happened? People quit saving for their retirement.
Yeah.
It's all now the government all has it in the palm of, oh, well, I have to rely on the government to retire now because I've got to get it back from them. What could happen, and what has happened in other countries, by the way, I think Cyprus is a shining example of this. Cyprus ran out of money, so they just went in and took all the money out of all the retirement accounts and said, there's our money back. So
Right.
what happened to all of those people who had retirement?
Right.
They're eating sand on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think we fully understand, because it's always propagandized in our direction. Well, but if we take the money from you, all of the funds that we have will be able to make more money, and then we'll be able to do it for you, and you don't have to worry about it. And everybody goes, oh, I don't have to worry about, oh, well, that sounds like a plan. Okay. And it's all about our human laziness. That's the only thing it's about. We wouldn't even be where we are today. Four of us wouldn't be friends right now if we had done what we said a long time ago, which is to just take on our own business and deal with it in our community. That's what churches used to be for. That's what the community used to be for. If you don't want to be a religious person, that's what the community did. The community would have a food bank if the church didn't have a food bank. And yet all we've done over the years is go, oh, well, I'll just drop my kids off because I know the teachers have what's best in mind for them. So no worries. I can go get my nails done or work so that we can have extra money, so that we can have a boat,
Right.
and I'm not saying,
Right.
I don't care if that upsets you. Frankly, you just write whatever you want about me, because yes, there are people who are impoverished, but there should be churches for that, and there should be communities for that, not government for that.
Yeah. Well, that was a nice NPR voice there, Jenni.
That was hilarious.
At the same time, how do you, Charity has laid out the most simple way to start the process. I mean, how hard is it to make a single decision to serve on a single brigade for one board in some capacity, just one or two? I mean, that's, you want to you start at the very bottom, and that's the very bottom of this whole ladder. Is you make a decision to just say, hey, I'm going to watch that school board all year this year, or I'm going to go watch that city council. I'm going to go watch that county commission, whatever it is. I mean, it's the,
and by the way,
what?
most of them
You
break
won't
for
be
summer.
alone.
Yeah.
You'll
Sorry,
make
Wendi.
new friends, like Jenni pointed out. You'll make new friends, and you won't be alone, and you'll see people outside of work.
They
That's
act differently when they see the eye of the eagle is on them. They start acting differently.
well, look how they acted, Wendi,
In front of everyone.
at that
yes,
meeting.
Yes.
Look how they
I know.
acted at that meeting when there's 40 eyeballs sitting there looking at them. Or
That
80, two per
that
person.
was astonishing.
Yeah.
I
They were nervous.
Yes.
So let me bounce it back again to that, because it's the same way with the school board, and it's the same thing with everything else. And it's like I said a second ago, some of these don't even meet during the summer. So when you say, well, I've got summer vacation plans. Okay. But like Charity, what do you do if you can't attend a meeting?
Have somebody go in your place.
Yeah.
The one thing you don't do is leave your post unmanned. Just have a friend go. It's easy.
Right.
And Wendi and Charity and all of us, I think, have said this, but I'm going to send this home because it's about time for us to wrap up. We're at 1:10. We used to be years ago, and I think everybody at this point knows that when my mom died, I started going through her things, and she saved so many great things. And I posted some stuff from the old papers that she saved and things like that. but it really brought back to me my childhood. And I was talking the other day to somebody about the fact that when I was 5 and 6 years old, a bunch of us in the neighborhood, we just like ran around. I mean, and I get that today is a different day, but I think what I'm trying to say is I know that my neighbor was watching me. I actually found birthday cards that my mom had saved from my neighbor. Back then, neighbors watched the kids. Back then, neighbors were interested in each other. Mom stayed home. There was somebody there to pay attention. We weren't all in the workforce. There was a community there. And that's why part of this did not happen back then. I mean, granted, it's slowly been happening, but what happened when women were browbeaten into going back into the universe, where did that come from? Back into the workforce because we weren't enough just being a mom. Then we got propagandized to go back into the workforce so we could be something. Well, we were something at home caring for our children. That we absolutely were. And when we were at home caring for our children, the place was different because moms would meet and have coffees together so everybody knew what was going on at the school. It's been since we've been forced out of our homes and into the workforce and not taking care of our own things, our own house and our own neighborhoods, that the government has been able to come in really and do what they're doing right now, which is, like dumpster fires all over the place that we can't seem to come,
It was like a foundation of society they put cracks in.
Yeah, I agree. And it's been a concern of mine for a while too. I've watched this and Charity, she's a lot younger than I am, but there's the whole structure of society did change from the time my mother's 85. She did own her own business in the 70s and she tried to, get me to do that. But I stayed home with my kids for a very simple reason. And that was I didn't want anyone else raising them. So I'm very well educated. I went to college. I have a degree. I have a year of graduate school. But with all of that said, people are like, well, you sacrificed. I didn't sacrifice anything. What I didn't want to sacrifice were my children. So I did not. And my ex-husband and I made the conscious decision before we married that is the way we were going to run our family, and we would run it on one income. And so we weren't trapped, with this whole, well, can I stay home and take care of my kids because we'll lose an income? So I always counsel younger women before they get married. I try to tell them, go ahead, get your degree, go ahead and work. But when you get married, think about this and think about how you want to structure things from the beginning and talk about your boyfriend, your spouse, whoever, about that, and make your decisions from the beginning on that. These are things you must consider so that you aren't caught up later in this trap, because there's a lot of women I know who tell me that I can't stay home. I want to stay home with the baby, but I can't. I have to go back to work, and it tears them up. It literally tears them up. And so this whole business of wanting to buy a boat, really? I had one woman tell me, my husband wants me to go back to work because he wants to buy such and such. And I'm like, really? Are you serious right now? He would much rather have you do that than raise your own child. That's interesting. So what are we teaching our boys as well? Yeah. We've got so many women out there telling their boyfriends, I don't need you. Really?
Yeah.
Well,
when you tell someone you don't need them, don't be surprised when they come back at that with you, right? So you really have to consider how the entire relationship structure. And personally, I would love to see somebody bring back Paul Harvey and all of his, the rest of the story. My grandfather used to listen to him on KMOX radio in St. Louis.
Wendi, I want to touch on I want to touch on what you just said. I love Paul Harvey too. I always tell people when they're looking at decisions, go to the last day of your life, look back. What do you wish you would have done?
Right.
Do that. And if you just imagine yourself on the last day of your life, You are not going to care what kind of car you drove around in or what house you lived in near as much as you're going to care about the time with your kids and your family and what kind of family you raised. That is what's going to be most important to you. And if you can look at it from that perspective, it's a lot easier to make decisions.
Yeah. And if we
Amen.
don't take care of the situation in the country right now with
Exactly.
what's
And you
going
have to
on,
get involved.
you're not going to have to worry about that.
You
What
know-
kind of car you're going to be driving, because they're going to tell you. What kind of job they're going to
Right.
tell you. What you eat, they're going to tell you. Your kids are going to be slaves to this system, and it will not be pretty, because
And it
they
only
already tried to mandate medical experiments on people. What do you think is coming next? I
Yeah.
mean, really, people think we're in a lull right now. There is no lull.
yeah.
They're going to try lockdowns again, I'm sure. They're going to try more human experimentation. Are you going to be able to resist that? Are you going to be able to stand against it when it's in your face? Because it had been under the radar. I don't think it's going to be under the radar much longer.
Well, you know, again, because we're going to close out now. We're getting a little long, but pulling it back to Charity here too in the end, and then kind of wrapping everything up. I think Charity system solves every problem that we talked about.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, I don't know how it doesn't solve every problem we've talked about. Charity says, go to your meetings, get involved in this group, make one up in your area, and they can contact you, right? Can't they directly? Give me one
Sure.
more time.
freedombrigades.com. You can go there. That's going to come directly to me. You can also email me at clinch@freedombrigades.com. Lynch is with an I.
I know I keep spelling it with a Y. I'm so sorry.
Everyone does. That's okay.
So sorry.
When we went for the marriage license, they said I had been spelling it with a Y. I hadn't seen it. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm going to be saying for the rest of my life, no, it's okay.
That's so funny. But
My name-
the whole, it solves everything. So
Yeah.
contact Charity if you're not sure how to start a group in your area, because once you start a group in your area, you meet people in your neighborhood. Okay.
Yes.
Now you know people in your neighborhood. Now you get to watch each other. Now you know what's going on at your school board. Now you know what's going on at your city council. If you feel like you can't do something, you now have a group of people around you that can help make you feel empowered to do it. Charity, it solves every problem. So thank you so much for being on with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. You know, it is important that you get in with the network of the other brigades, because
Okay.
we strategize and collaborate with each other as well. It's completely free. What it costs is your time.
Yeah.
And if you can't spend your time, shut up.
Yeah.
Just don't complain about anything that happens. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Oh, and it looks like Amber
Yep.
saying that in Comanche County, they have the brigades too.
We have
So-
brigades in Oklahoma County, and also, I believe, Canadian County. So
Okay.
There are 28 brigades in Oklahoma. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we
Let's
need to
get
have
plugged
a
in.
minimum of 77, right?
Yes.
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 All right. Well,
Thank you.
we'll sign off, I think, for today. So Amber, Charity, thank you so much. I was thinking about Amber. Thank you so much for being with us, Charity. And
Thanks for having me.
I just can't thank you enough. And, if you ever want to come back on again and talk about something else, or we can reiterate it, you are absolutely welcome. And please feel free to
Anytime.
do so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charity.
Thanks, Jerry.
All right. And you, Miss Dial, we will talk with you again, hopefully very soon.
Yes.
And we never did decide exactly what your day was going to be, did we?
I think we did.
Yeah, I thought we did.
Okay.
Let me check my calendar.
What I've forgotten there. Well, we'll deal with it when we get out of. Let's get
Oh,
out
it's
of
Wednesdays.
Yeah.
First Wednesday of the month.
this.
Yeah.
First Wednesday. Okay.
First Wednesday.
All right. So we'll be seeing you back again here pretty quick.
Isn't Charity awesome if you haven't met her? Just
I
tell
would
Michael
say
she's amazing.
I would say Awesome's way up there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I am so invested in what she does. It does.
Yes.
It solves every problem.
It does. And that's why we partner with her with Restore Liberty, because setting that safety net across the state for communication and to get the patriot groups all organized, it's fantastic. She already has the structure. So we partner with her to get that done. And the election brigades, of course, are very important to what I'm doing, and, you know, talk to her quite a bit on that. But yes, the brigades are key, and the structure is also key. It's very simple and it's very local, and that's the way it's got to be done.
Absolutely.
General Flynn's always saying local action has national impact. That is absolutely correct. So I fully agree with that statement. And now I've seen how it works. So that is exactly what the way we need to do things. Just like you said, Jenni, she's really
She's
quite
right over
something.
the target.
Right
All
over
right,
the
Wendi, I'm going to
target.
sign off with you for now, and we will talk to you again next week, actually.
Yes, next week. I have
Yes.
legislation to talk about regarding the elections I'm going through right now, and looking at the various pieces of legislation that have been dropped regarding elections.
Thank you so much.
Wendy.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you to do. Thank you so much for that.
Not a problem. Thank you guys,
All right.
and thank you for having me again, and we'll see
right.
you again soon.
See you next week.
All right, thanks.
All right. Bye. All right, Mr. Michael.
Personal responsibility. That's what it comes down to. Do we want to take responsibility for our own lives, our own actions, all of our own stuff? If we don't, then the government's going to. It's that simple. I mean, it really is that simple. I don't need the government making all decisions in my life.
Well, and I think Charity's system is so phenomenal.
Yes.
Because I mean, on every level, it does make the responsibility. And I think that once people get that sense of responsibility for themselves, then they're more likely to be able to stand up, because they can say, you know, hey, I've done that before. I see how this works. Because so much of it is fear.
Yeah.
So much of the way the government operates is to instill fear in the people, because if we're scared, we don't want to do something. Oh, I'm nervous about that. I don't feel like I can do that. You know, that's where so much of this comes from. And number one, Christians don't have fear anyway. I mean, we should not fear. I mean, we know where we're going. We have that all outlined. We're told that in the Bible. So we shouldn't fear anyway. But just human nature, I mean, Michael, when you ran for school board, were you just like, didn't you have a little trepidation about it? I mean, wasn't it a little scary?
Oh, it was in just the not knowing, but that all went away, you know, fairly, almost immediately. It was like, hey, I'm here. I'm going to do this. You know, this is what it is. This is what I'm supposed to be doing.
And now that you've done that, you have the experience and you feel more comfortable to do something else.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so
But there again, Jenni, what we look at these brigades, at what kind of charity started, when you've got people now that have eyes on these officials, the bad players, when after a couple years of this, the bad players are going to leave because they don't want people looking into them, looking at them. You're going to return back to like how this country used to be, to where the greatest people in your community, in your local community, the statesmen, the most philanthropic, the best people, they were the ones on all these committees. They were the ones on the school boards. They were the ones directing the city council, not these bad players, not these bad guys that have ulterior motives and everything else. So as we continue to keep accountability on these people, the bad people will leave the system because they don't want light being shown on them in any capacity.
And you're 100% right. And so there's no downside. I mean, we've thought of all of these upsides. Can you even think of one downside?
No, there's no downside. There's no downside to keeping our elected officials accountable. And that's really what it comes down to. Are they doing what they say they're going to do? Or are they constantly, just making decisions based on pressure from these larger groups, that have agendas. And that's really what it comes down to. They're not representing the people, because if they did, they would make decisions based in our interest to protect our liberty, and not everything they do for this control that we're under.
Absolutely. One quick note before we get off of here. I am having a cancer removed on my nose, so that will be next Friday after next Friday's podcast in the afternoon. So just as a reminder, in about a week, you'll see me looking like Frankenstein because I refuse to put a bandage on it, and you're just going to have to be okay with that. I mean, just listen if you can't look at me. So, but I'm starting to warn our regular listeners right now. So no, everybody's not going, oh, that's so gross. I can't help it. It is what it is. All right, Mr. Michael, you got anything exciting for the weekend to do?
A lot of work. I'm going to take responsibility and do some work around my house and with my family, and
Yeah, I've got a lot of that this week too. And
it's not going to just be entertainment 24/7. I'm going to actually do some stuff.
Well, I may have to call and check up on you then, just to make sure you did it. Just that accountability.
Sure, go ahead. You can watch me. You can sit outside in my driveway and watch me.
Hey, under your Gaznan flag.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so next week, we are going to have, oh, I totally forgot about this. We actually had somebody scheduled for Wednesday, and I had to
Wendy's going to be on the first Wednesday in March, because we're already.
Yeah, we had an issue with that. Remember? So
we'll have to talk about that in a second. Today.
We will have we'll have Sherry on Friday the 9th, our regular Sherry on the 9th. Julianne Romanello will be on Wednesday. And we've got Carmen and V1SUT coming up. So we'll have, next week, this month. Oh my gosh, I keep forgetting it's this month.
Yeah.
It's February now. This month we have an absolutely phenomenal lineup of guests coming out. So please stick with us. And thank you so much to our donors, Michael.
Always. And we are volunteers. We're not getting paid, and we have expenses, and everything that we do is out of pocket.
So thank you for helping us out. Hang in there with us, and we will see you next Wednesday.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.